Return of the Mount Hua Sect, Chapter 167. Still, I'll walk together with you. You did well, Mount Hua's divine dragon. You said you would take one day off and move, but how many days did you stay? The food here is delicious, and the bed is comfortable, and the drinks... no, it isn't any of that. It is my body which didn't recover. Chongmyeong looked at Hong Dae-gwang with narrowed eyes. How did the Beggars Union turn into this? In the past, the Beggars Union were made of people who risked their lives for information. In the final battle, in terms of loss of power, it was Mount Hua who suffered the most damage. But in terms of dead disciples, the Beggars Union was the first. He thought that the Beggar Union would be strict and working hard, but this man looked so lazy. No, was the Beggars Union always like this? He didn't know it because people change on the battlefield. Anyway, Mount Hua's divine dragon, are you going back to Mount Hua now? We should be moving soon. Really? Hong Dae-gwang's eyes changed. He bowed to Chongmyeong. I, Hong Dae-gwang, the Loyang branch leader of the Beggars Union, would like to thank Mount Hua for the help they have given me in the Sword Tomb incident. And the Beggars Union will never forget the grace shown to us. This time, Chongmyeong decided not to speak snarky things. It was nothing. The two of them bowed to each other and looked at each other with awkward faces. What was it? A feeling of camaraderie. And now you better be careful. Huh? Hong Dae-gwang spoke in a whisper. Whether you like it or not, this incident will make your name known everywhere because everyone saw you act with their own eyes. After 2 years since the conference with the Jongnam sect, your reputation, which had faded a little, is going to spread again like wildfire. It isn't necessarily a good thing to get fame in Gangho. More and more people will start to turn envious of you, and more people will try to use that to get fame for themselves. That's such an obvious fact, Chongmyeong said. He had been through something like this before, and all those who came to him went back with their tails between their legs. He had received the title Plum Blossom Sword Saint only after defeating everyone who had attacked him. I'm giving advice. Hong Dae-gwang was furious when he saw Chongmyeong nodding reluctantly. Well, he wasn't the Plum Blossom Sword Saint now, but Mount Hua's divine dragon. All right, I believe you'll do well. And from now on, please send information about Mount Hua's feats to us regularly. Chongmyeong's eyes lit up. Oh? Sending information and people to anyone meant that the Beggars Union wanted to be in contact with them, that they wanted to continue this relationship and exchange information with Mount Hua. We have nothing to give, though. We will decide that. Hong Dae-gwang chuckled. I plan to reinstate the branch in Hwam Village, so if you need information from the Beggars Union, please contact us through them. So you're saying that you will take the information about Mount Hua from the Hwam branch? That is how we all help each other and live. Chongmyeong smiled. This wasn't a bad suggestion. Rather, it was what he was hoping for. One of the things that Mount Hua lacked right now was the flow of information. In fact, the information power that Mount Hua possessed was inferior compared to even medium-sized sects. Until recently, they had just lived on a mountain and only worried about money. So why would they care about how the world worked? Chongmyeong nodded and said, in addition to that, yes, those who come to the Hwam branch have to be smart kids because there is a lot of information I want. And leave a couple of beggars in Nanyang for the Hwayong sect. Also, keep in contact constantly for information. Let's do that then. The decision was quick. It isn't like we won't gain anything. They didn't get what they were aiming for, but this wasn't worthless at all. After Mount Hua was kicked out of the 9 sects, this was the first time that Mount Hua was able to reconnect the path of information from the Beggars Union, which had been cut in the past. If Hyunjong found out about it, would he be in tears? Anyway, thank you, Mount Hua's divine dragon. Yes, you stay good too, though we probably won't meet each other again. Maybe we will get to see each other. Hong Dae-gwang left those words and waved his hand. Wait! Chongmyeong grabbed Hong Dae-gwang, who was about to turn back. Huh? Don't forget the promise. Promise? To send that beggar to Mount Hua. Hong Dae-gwang's eyes trembled. Sure, right. I didn't forget. Don't think I will forget it if time passes. I won't forget even if I die. What did that beggar even do to this guy? I will keep my promise. I am Hong Dae-gwang. If you don't keep your promise, don't consider putting up a branch in Hwaum. I said I won't forget. Hong Dae-gwang smiled, looking at the kid who was threatening him. But it was a forced smile because he knew that this child would never joke about such things. Well, until he left Nanyang, Hong Dae-gwang was threatened about it. After doing their last task, the disciples of Mount Hua stood in front of the Hua Sect. The Hua Sect's Wei So-heng and Wei Lip-san were there to see them off with the disciples of the sect. Thank you so much. It was nothing, Baek-chun responded. Baek-chun and Wei Lip-san were already discussing how to operate the Hua Sect from now on and how Mount Hua would support it. As Wei Lip-san was someone who considered Mount Hua to be his last resort, he felt grateful that they were initiating this relationship between them and the Beggars Union, and he even promised to help Wei Lip-san solve his troubles and support the sect as well. Wei Lip-san bowed. The disciples of Mount Hua also bowed their heads. Young disciple Chongmyung! Wei So-heng looked at Chongmyung with a face of regret. What? It feels a bit unfortunate. You're bound to feel that, but we'll keep seeing each other from now on. It was a nice way to put it, but it was worrisome too. Can I become a disciple of the main sect later? No. Chongmyung cut short his words firmly. You must be the leader of the Hwa sect. Right. But it is alright for you to come to the main sect as much as possible and practice. Mount Hua doesn't discriminate between the disciples. Jogul Sayong is also intending to descend Mount Hua one day to succeed his family. Disciple Jogul? Wei So-heng looked at Jogul as if asking for confirmation, and Jogul waved his hand, feeling a bit embarrassed. I'm not at that level yet. Anyway, you can do it. Wei So-heng's eyes turned bright. So for now, help your father. You will have a lot of work to do for the coming days. I will. As if his burdens had been lifted, he smiled and backed away. As the situation settled, Baek-chun bid farewell to Wei Lip-san. Then we need to leave. You're going a long way, so you must need money. It's fine. Chongmyung touched his stomach. Something was sticking out. Because we are rich. Right. Anyway, let's meet again. Look after your health. As the disciples of Mount Hua returned waving, the people of the Hwa sect also waved their hands. They're gone. Yes, they are. It felt like the storm had gone and passed them. Wei Lip-san felt empty and smiled as he looked at the backs of the disciples of Mount Hua. Mount Hua will be different from before. No, it is already different. And one day, their names will spread all across the world along with the name of Mount Hua. I cannot be acting like this anymore. Let's go inside. There's a lot of work to do. Even 10 people will not be enough to do the task we were handed. Yes, father. The disciples of the Hwa sect turned around. Their shoulders seemed to be full of confidence and pride which had never existed before. The inscription on the signboard that said, Hwa sect, Mount Hua subsect, looked weirdly bright. The street looked a bit gloomy. All those who flocked to Nanyang had left, and the residents who were still bewildered by all that had happened finally felt at peace with the place going back to its quiet nature. In the end, we have to go back without getting anything. It isn't without anything. At Yunjong's words, Baek-chun shook his head. We took care of the Hwa sect, and we formed a relationship with the Beggars Union. In the meantime, we fought with Wudang and made our Mount Hua's name known. We cannot ask for more than this. You're right, Sasuk. But still, there was regret in their hearts. They wanted that soul vitality pill, but they couldn't get a single thing from the sword tomb. Yakson, that fucking two-faced bastard! Chomeng also kept grinding his teeth as if it bothered him. But what could they do? It was highly unlikely for the pill to fall from the sky just because they did some good deeds. They had to go back now. Baek-chun began to walk faster. He thought that if they stayed any longer in Nanyang, they would start to regret it even more. At that time, Yu Yisol, who was silent, spoke. But, Why did a person called Yaksun become the seizing sword? Huh? Yu Yisol looked at Chongmyung. You said before, the start of the tomb looked very much like something the untraceable seizing sword would do. Baekchun, who was silently listening, nodded and added, Now that I think about it, you did say something like that, Chongmyung. What was the reason? How can I know? It just felt like that to me. Baekchun shook his head. The answer to that came from Jogul. It must have been to hide his identity. Huh? Thinking about it, it becomes quite obvious that it was something that someone dealing with medicine should do. He must have been walking around into sects, defeating their best masters and taking away their swords. If it was known that Yaksun was the one who was doing it, it would have become a complete mess. That's the obvious answer. Baekchun frowned. There had to be some other reason, like something which couldn't be explained. No, it's not that. This time, Yunjong spoke. It was said that he was someone who stole the swords of people after their matches and never disclosed his identity. Right. Why did he do that? It didn't seem like he coveted them with pride or something. It was more like stealing it and throwing it into the sword tomb. Jogul frowned. Thinking about it, it did seem weird. Yaksun didn't need divine weapons. However, he took away the weapons with the other identity he created. In retrospect, all Yaksun did in his other name was nothing but nonsense. So why do all that? Why make the sword tomb at all? Maybe he hated things. Huh? Maybe there is no need for a reason. He simply hated things. Hated. Yaksun was a warrior. Baekchun tilted his head. Yusame, can you say it in detail? Yaksun basically had to be a practitioner. Yes. It would have been more accurate to call him a healer, but he was someone who did even more righteous deeds. He was famous in the Gangho for the pills he made, and he was someone who spent his whole life treating the sick and injured. Because he was that kind of person, I think he hated things that had to do with violence. The warriors who uselessly wielded their swords to kill people. Even if he treated those warriors, they would go to kill someone the next day. Do you think he did all this with such simple feelings? Then the sword tomb. Yu Yisol continued with a subtle expression. A warning, maybe, to the people in Gangho. If it wasn't for the disciples of Yaksun, no one would have ever known what his other identity was. No, wait. Yunjong tilted his head. Yaksun did have disciples, right? Then why didn't he pass down the teachings for the soul vitality pill to them? Was it not passed down to his disciples? I heard that Yaksun didn't teach them by choice. Maybe they weren't qualified. The more we think about it, the stranger he becomes. So according to this discussion, this was all a whim on the part of Yaksun. It was then Chongmyung, who was walking slowly, stopped. Everyone turned and looked at him. What is it, Chongmyung? Chongmyung muttered something, looking up at the distant sky as if he couldn't hear them. Yaksun, soul vitality pill, martial sects, untraceable seizing sword, healer, disciples, test, sect, muttering something as if he was possessed. Continue, leave, test, Gangho, then... Soon, his body trembled. It was as if he realized something in the possessed state, and he quickly turned around and started to walk in the opposite direction. Where are you going? As soon as Yunjong moved to catch Chongmyung, Baekchun stopped him. Shh. Huh? Let's follow him, silently. Yes. After a while, everyone began to carefully follow Chongmyung, who was walking while muttering something. Just what did you find out, you monster? An expectation, which couldn't be hidden, bloomed in Baekchun's eyes.